Welcome back. I'm here with author Lisa Hutchison to talk about a couple of her books, and you also have a new one coming out, I think, in the summertime. So just give us a very quick synopsis of the new book, and then we're going to come back to Iron Annie.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Bertha is actually one generation back from Iron Annie, and it's the life journey of my great-grandmother. When I did some of the research on Iron Annie, I found a lot of material, and I thought, oh, this is good for another book. So, yeah,
so stay tuned.
Presently edited. That's it. Stay tuned.
And when are you hoping to have it out? Am I summer 2019?
I could have had it out in the spring, but we always spend 2 months in Portugal. Good. So it'll be out probably the end of May, and I'm planning a launch in early June again at the hospital.
So Iron Annie, which is sold at the hospital, and the proceeds go to?
They go to the CAT scanner.
Perfect. Iron Annie, what does that stand for? Why that title?
Iron Annie was a nickname for a plane that my father flew, and it was the Ju-52, and it was dubbed Iron Annie by the English because it was nearly indestructible. Oh. They were trying to shoot it down many times, and it just wouldn't budge.
So your dad was a Lufthansa pilot?
He was a Lufthansa pilot, one of the first ones. He was a military man, but he was trained by Goering, because Goering was a flying ace in the First World War, and he took on the young guys to train them. And he was a commercial pilot at Lufthansa, and later, of course, once the Hitler regime came to power, he was part of the Luftwaffe. But he kept flying the Iron Annie, and Iron Annie was really not a fighter plane. It was a plane to fly out the wounded and fly in supplies, and still a lot of commercial flights. I mean, we hear of places now like Kabul and Baghdad and Tehran. They had fully functional commercial airports.
Right.
My dad flew regularly into those.
No, some people would think the father's the hero, but I think in this book, your mother's the hero.
It turned out to be the father was my hero,
right.
Because he had so many stories and he went around to so many places. But what I found out later, basically, when I did the research, how much my mother had suffered, how many losses were in her life during the war, and how she always, through her faith and through her stamina, kept on going and actually followed my dad around all the way to Canada and where they started again. So I would say that for a woman, that's very heroic to bear children and lose parents and lose relatives and brothers and sisters and so forth.
Wasn't there a terrifying moment that involves you as a child that you got separated from your mother?
Oh, yes.
And she thought you had perished? Tell us
yes.
about that.
Well, my mother was pregnant, and she gave birth early, and at that time the area was heavily bombarded, and I was with my grandmother and my older brother, and we were evacuated while my mother was in the hospital, and she did not find us for over 6 weeks. So I would say that the Red Cross did an awful good job reuniting people and so forth.
And when you came to Canada, you were a child.
Yes.
What was it like, and was there any discrimination against you because you were a German citizen?
Oh, we had a lot of discrimination. Right. It was quite sad, and I think that I dedicated this book to the refugees because even though we were not in refugees in that sense, I kind of feel for them what they go through. Yes, we had the swastika crosses painted on our door. My mother was spat at, and it was not a pretty time. So,
why did you write the book? Why did you want to do these memoirs, or how did it even start?
Well, it started rather innocently. I've talked a lot about my dad and his funny stories and his sad stories and so on. And my husband always said, oh, you should write this down. And I said, I don't really want to do this. So one year, a couple of years ago, I wanted to write a little ode to my dad on Father's Day because somehow I felt close to him. Well, 75 pages later, it was no longer an ode. It was at best a short story and so forth. So I looked at it again, and I found myself an editor in London. And after about 2 weeks, he called me and he said, you know, every one of those paragraphs is a story. Why don't you pick one and you work on it? And once I started, and then we went to Portugal, I just sat down and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. It never stopped.
Wow.
And a lot of things came back to me. My parents were very open in their storytelling and their journey and so forth. And then I found some letters that were written by them to each other and from my grandmother and so forth. So I could, you know, cobble together a number of things.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for putting pen to paper, and congratulations on your Pencraft first place award as well for this book.
Thank you. That was quite a surprise.
Thank you, and congratulations on that.
Thanks, Peter.
If you're looking for a Christmas gift and you want to support the hospital, you can go to Stratford General Hospital and pick up a book.